I never thought I'd be the kind of person to share a story like this, but life has a strange way of leading you down paths you never planned to walk. Sometimes it isn't a single choice that changes everything. It's a series of quiet moments, small steps that blur into something you can't quite undo. I've been with my boyfriend for a few years now, and from the beginning, what we had felt different. He wasn't like anyone I'd met before. There was something magnetic about him. His calm, his focus, the way he made me feel seen in a world that rarely stops long enough to notice anyone. He would tell me I had a kind of energy that drew people in without effort, and I'd laugh it off, thinking it was just flattery. But soon I realized he meant it in ways I didn't fully understand. He had a habit of observing everything, details others would overlook. When we went out, he noticed the smallest things, how people reacted to me, how their eyes followed me in passing. I used to feel embarrassed when he pointed it out, but he never seemed bothered by it. In fact, he seemed intrigued. Most people would grow jealous. He didn't. He'd smile, squeeze my hand, and say softly, "They can look, but you're mine." It felt harmless then, almost endearing, a sign of confidence rather than control. But over time, something about it began to change. His fascination deepened, like he was drawn to the idea of being with someone others noticed. He'd encouraged me to wear what he thought brought out my confidence, and at first it felt empowering. It wasn't until later that I realized there was a difference between freedom and being carefully guided towards something I didn't choose. It started small, his remarks, his subtle encouragements. Then came the moment that shifted everything. One evening his tone turned more serious. He looked at me differently, as if testing the ground between us, and said words that lingered longer than they should have. It wasn't what he said alone, it was how he said it, the quiet certainty behind it, as though he was gently nudging the walls of what I thought we were. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I wondered if I'd misunderstood him, or if he was revealing a part of himself I'd never seen before. His behavior didn't change dramatically, just enough for me to notice. He became more intentional, more watchful. It was like he was waiting for me to respond, to play along with whatever silent understanding had formed between us. The truth is, I started to sense a kind of invisible game, something psychological rather than spoken. Every choice I made, every interaction seemed to mean more than it used to. His glances, his words, the pauses between them, all of it carried weight, and I could feel myself reacting in ways I didn't expect. The line between comfort and unease, trust and control began to blur. One night stands out in my memory. We were out, surrounded by laughter and noise, but I could feel the tension between us. Not anger, just something charged, unspoken. A stranger spoke to me, nothing unusual, but the moment stretched longer than it should have. When I looked at my boyfriend, his expression was calm, unreadable, almost approving. I felt conflicted, like I was being tested without realizing it. That night, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't about betrayal or guilt, it was about awareness. Awareness of how far things had gone and how quietly it had all happened. There was a part of me that wanted to stop, to pull back, but another part that was drawn to understanding what exactly he wanted from me and what I was becoming in the process. After that, everything between us felt different. On the surface, nothing had changed. We still laughed, still shared the same routines, still looked like the same couple we'd always been. But underneath, there was a current I couldn't ignore. I replayed moments in my mind, wondering whether we were still on the same side of love, or if we had started standing on opposite edges of it. He seemed happier, strangely content, as if something he'd been chasing had finally fallen into place. I tried to convince myself it was fine, that maybe what unsettled me didn't matter as long as he was at peace. But at night, when silence returned and my thoughts stopped running, I'd feel the weight of everything pressing down. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, asking myself when love had started to feel like a test, I was destined to fail. Maybe it wasn't betrayal that scared me most. Maybe it was realizing how easily love can twist itself into something unfamiliar. How quietly trust can turn into something else entirely. What we shared had always been about connection. Now I wasn't sure what held us together anymore. Was it love, habit, or something darker? Something that thrived on how close we could stand to the edge without falling off completely? I still don't know the answer, but I do know that some lines once crossed can never be redrawn, and maybe the real question isn't whether we broke something that night, but whether it was ever whole to begin with.